Welcome back, everyone. You are about to listen to the final episode of season 1 of The Moles That Make Fatherhood. Now, what I've done is I just took some of my favorite clips from all the interviews I did this season, strung them together just to recap a successful season 1. It's been an interesting journey so far. I want to thank anyone who's been following along and listen to the podcast so much for your support. I really appreciate it. And for anybody who is the first time listening, you get to, see some of the clips, listen to them, and just kind of see what the podcast is about. I hope you enjoy it. I have some great interviews lined up for season 2, and I'm looking forward to coming back and having a strong season, making it just bigger and better for everybody who's following along and just trying to add value for anyone listening. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoy the recap, and I look forward to seeing you all next season. Enjoy.
So when we talking about us, like in particular, since me and you talking on the phone, like how would you, in your own words, how would you describe our relationship over the years?
You know what? I think you always reach out. It was you. It wasn't even me. You always took the initiative to. I ain't gonna say I love our relationship because I love you, but I don't know your kids either, and I would love to get to know. But I do believe that you love me, and you would definitely be there for me. But out of all of the kids, you're the only one that reach out. So I would love a stronger bond. And that was the reason for me doing this, because I knew I was like, I didn't have any choice whether I wanted to do it or not, because I knew it was questions that needed to be asked and needed to be answered. And I wasn't going to run from that.
And I appreciate that, man. I really do appreciate it. And I was thinking this morning just about our conversation. And I was anxious, man. But I was trying not to be anxious at the same time, because if I'm being like just completely transparent, I didn't know if he was going to show up. And I didn't want to get too excited for it. Like, I didn't want to get excited for our conversation and potentially be let down. But I was so, but I really wanted to have this conversation and just talk to you, man. Because like you said, I'm one of the only ones that stayed in touch and reach out. But it's because I understand that everybody got a story. And, I would say maybe, when it comes to comparatively speaking to my other siblings, that, your story is essentially part of my story. So if I want to learn more about me, I got to learn more about you. And there was a time where I was like, I had to come to a higher realization, like when I was a kid, and we didn't have the greatest relationship. We wasn't communicating a whole lot. And I realized how much I was like you. And there was a part of me that didn't like it. But I don't know if you remember this, right? So we came to your house in Niagara Falls, me and the whole crew. Like, we came in over there and played spades. I don't know if you remember this night. So yeah, me, Shooter, Kenny, Shirley came over. We all came over. We played spades, and you had a partner. It was a female. I don't remember her name or nothing like that. But y'all beat us every time because y'all was underbidden, and we weren't playing sandbags, man, like that. but I remember somebody, my man Mario, his girlfriend, she broke your paper towel holder. It was like on hanging somewhere.
In the kitchen.
And it was hanging in the kitchen, and she broke it off of wherever it was. He was like, He's like, girl, I paid like $100,000 to drive every time. And I forget what you said, some ridiculous amount of money. And I'm like, hey, yo, me and Shooter looked at each other, and Shirley, because that's some of the same shit that we say all the time. And I'm like, yo, he just like us. And just coming to that realization that, like, yo, I am a lot like my father, and my father has a lot of great qualities. And I should be proud of those qualities to, where I'm like my father, because you're a funny dude. You got a great personality. People love to be around you. And I was like, man, I am a lot like my father.
And a lot of, I always said that. I said that I'm so proud of you because you are doing everything that I wanted to do. Even starting from the school and sports. I mean, I was good at everything I did in sports. I was good at, and I couldn't help it. It was just in me. When it came to physical fitness, I mean, from lifting weights to pull up to basketball to football to skating, I was good at it. And then when I seen you doing it, I was like, wow. I mean, I was so happy. That was like, yeah, there go me right there. I love that. I always been into. I was like, because that's something. If I had took another direction, I always wondered where would I be, especially when it came to football because I was good. But I liked the streets because that's what I really. Because my father wasn't there, and so I turned to the older guys that was in the street. Looked like they was having so much fun and all like that. So I wanted to be with them.
Yeah.
Instead of go and do something else. So instead of me continuing to play football and do everything else, I was running the streets. So, I mean, and by me doing that, I've been shot 3 times. I got a bullet in my back too close to my spinal cord. And I've been stabbed. So the streets wasn't for me. Thank God today I'm still here.
My job as a parent is to prepare my kids to live a successful life. Right. But that sounds simple. And, it's kind of obvious what you need to do and what you want to stay away from. However, it's not easy. Simple isn't always easy. And that includes stopping what I'm doing and listening to my daughter talk to me about how she's feeling. That includes undivided attention to each kid, because that's like, just to me, undivided attention to your children, taking that 10 minutes when you get home and seeing how their day went, seeing if there's anything they need to talk about. That is just as important as food and water for their personal development.
Yeah.
They need that. And modeling good behavior. I mean, if I come home and lose my temper every day, they're going to come home and lose their temper when they're adults. So I know this. And so I try to check myself, and I try to even adjust myself when I go in so I can be an effective father and not a stressed out business owner. They don't need that version of me. They need the effective father. So I got to change gears.
Yes. You said, I think something I want to go into a little bit deeper is because it's something you said about, my job as a dad is to make sure my kids have a successful life.
They're prepared for a successful life.
They're prepared. Okay. So they're prepared for a successful life. Can you go into a little bit more detail about what that means? Like what your definition of what it means to even have a successful life or prepare them. Like, what does that mean? Because I think a lot of fathers, they have this idea, they have things that we want for our kids. Right. And success is so subjective. So what does that mean to prepare them for a successful life?
So the first thing I try to do is create an environment in the house where they have the freedom to express their individuality without me having to take offense or try to push my model of a teenage boy or teenage girl onto them. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I'm less concerned with, how do I put this? I'm less concerned with how they do their hair, how they dress, and all that stuff, as long as it's authentic to them. I want them to have that personal identity, because then when they start to think about what is it I want to do in life? Now, success to me is when you are able to set a goal. That goal is in line with who you are, and you can achieve that goal. That means part of that process is learning how to do things you don't want to do to get to the parts of that you do want to do. There's everything we do in life. There's a season or there's a portion of that job that we hate doing. You know, for me, I don't like doing the administrative stuff, the, records and keeping track of things, but I have to do a good job with that so that I can effectively coach people. So I'm not giving them the same coaching session the next week. They're like, we went over this. I'm like, oh, my bad. That's not going to help me at all. So there's that. There's the ability to understand what their needs are. Yeah. Really, to sum it up, really, what I want to do is create individuals who are aware of their needs, who are aware when they're not being met, who don't mind speaking up and saying, I have this need and I want it to be met, who set goals that are in line with who they are. So they're not going to college and they're not, spending 10 years in a career that they're like, man, I hated it. I should have done X, Y, and Z. And it wasn't and a lot of people do this. They kind of take their parents' advice as a roadmap. And so they say, well, I guess I'm smart. I should be a doctor. And they spend all that time only to find out after they reclaim their authentic self, because they've been out of the house for a while, they find that I don't want to be a doctor at all.
Yeah.
So really it's building these authentic people who communicate well and who set goals that are in line with them, who understand boundaries, who understand how to take care of themselves.
Another huge thing, and I'm glad I say I got this early, kind of wished I got it earlier, but the one thing was don't be offended as a parent. Don't take things personal. So as a parent, as they would do certain things, it's like, oh, like, why are you doing this to me? And, I've done all this and, I've done this, I've done that. And, you don't appreciate this. And it was kind of like, don't take it personal, because you're doing everything that you're doing out of love. Whether or not they appreciate it, that's up to them. You know what I mean? And I mean, you can make some alterations, to all that. But it was not taking things personal. And just kind of being consistent in the way that I was loving her, because regardless on how she was treating me, so to speak, it was like, I need to stay consistent as a father so she can see what that looks like. My actions and my love for her should not be altered by what she's doing. Yeah. So, through my faith, I was able to see, those type of things. And I really want to say that it was the letter that I wrote to God that was a huge turning point for me as far as how I handle certain situations with Jada.
Would you say that writing that letter, it kind of opened you up to just like, was that the point where you opened yourself up to just doing things different?
Well, it wasn't, I don't know if it was about, I mean, yes, I did open myself up to doing things different, because I opened my heart to like, what am I doing wrong, so to speak? Right. Because for me, it was like, I'm just instilling the things that, my mom instilled in me, so to speak, the structure and this and that. But it was more like, am I being too hard on her? Should I let up a little bit? Should I do this? And in some sense, yeah, maybe I did let up. But my main thing was not jeopardizing who I was as a father. So I mean, through that letter, it did open up, some things, but it was just like, God, just show me, like, if I'm doing something wrong, show me that I'm doing something wrong.
Yeah. Is there anything is too much structure when it comes to being a parent or being a father, in your opinion?
It can be. And maybe I was, because like, ironically, talked to a parent today about some things. We have to be careful when we, and this is me talking to myself, like being structured and being controlling. I think that those are two different things, right? But is it either way? It's probably too much. I mean, even when you're doing, nice things, so to speak, too much of those nice things can become a detriment to the child and the relationship. So I can agree to say that too much structure, I don't know what that is. I don't know how to gauge it, so to speak. But I can say too much structure can be a detriment to the child and the child in general, and then also your relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. I like that, man. So you've been talking about your faith. And, it seems like you have and I know you, man, you have a really close personal relationship with God, man. Like your prayer life, and you write letters to God, right? Have you ever had times as a father where you feel like you had a certain style that you wanted to parent, and it was almost against, it was contradictory to maybe what your faith said of how you should be parenting?
No, I can't. Well, the only thing that I would say would be me responding or me doing something prior to praying about it. Because this is what I want to do. This is what I think is best. So after the letter even, and not to say I always get this right, but after the letter even, it was like, in order for me to have an open mind and heart about what I want God to show me, I have to take certain things to him. Prior to the letter, it was like, I'm doing this. I'm her father. This is the way things are going to be. I don't want to say not that I couldn't tell, anybody couldn't tell me I was doing wrong, because I spoke to my godfather quite often on some things. And, he kind of pointed some stuff out to me and I made some adjustments, but it was kind of like, this is my job. Right. But, when you think about it, and I say this, I think you've heard me say this too. It's like, this is the contract for me. Like God has given her to me for this period of time. I have to prepare her for when my contract ends and I become a consultant, because she's always God's, right? So I have to allow him to intervene in her life as well. So with that being said, I have to go to him to, God, guide me in this. And I mean, did I get it right all the time? No, because it was just like, I ain't praying about this. Like, look, do this. You know what I'm saying? And so if anything, I would probably say just kind of the things that I prayed about as far as the discernment and me having an open heart and open mind. There were still times after that where I just did my own thing, in the flesh. So if I had to say anything, it'd probably be that.
How do you know specifically as a father when you're out of rhythm for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think it kind of goes back to like when the heaviness set in my family or in my home, and I can feel it. I feel like when I'm out of balance, I'm forcing a lot. Yeah. It's like basketball. Like you look at some cats just forcing shots up. You're like, bro, you're not. The coaches are like, yo, run the offense. Like let the offense come to you. And I feel like when I'm out of balance, I'm forcing a lot, right? Like, come on, let's go. And it's like it's taking so much effort rather than things just flowing, right? And so. And sometimes though it does take me getting checked by my wife, like, and because I'm tunnel vision, I'm grinding, and sometimes I've had to learn to grow in that capacity as well, like taking feedback, like harsh feedback, constructive criticism, not something that I was used to as a kid. Because coming up my way, it wasn't called constructive criticism; it was called disrespect. And you disrespect me, we gotta handle it. But I noticed in other cultures, it's like, oh no, constructive criticism. Thank you for the feedback. Let me get better. Yeah. And so that was more maturing on my end. So it's when I feel like I'm forcing, I'm like, okay, something's off here. Let me sit back and self-assess and go deep and say, okay, is everybody in my family, are their needs being met? And not just like, is the mortgage paid? Of course, that's good. There's a car payments, yeah. But emotionally, what's their emotional tank on? Spiritual tank? Do you know where they're at right now? Like, physically, yeah, but do you know where they're at emotionally and mentally and spiritually? And if I say no to those things, then I gotta get back in rhythm, man. And so,
yeah, man, it's cool that you mentioned that, because I've had to check myself on certain things that you just mentioned about with my son, because my son, he speaks his mind. Like like whatever comes to his mind, he gonna say it, man. And I'm like, yo, you being disrespectful. Like I used to say that. I say that to my son. Like I'm like, oh, I had to check myself, and through my growth and my development and learning, and being like, now I'm putting that label on my son that he's a disrespectful kid when he really not trying to be. He just trying to speak his mind.
You talking now? You talking now?
You know what I'm saying? I'm like, yo, I gotta reword that and reassess what I'm saying to my son and what labels I'm putting on my son. and he just trying to be expressive, you know? And I'm like, man, look, okay, I got to come at it a different way. Like, yo, is that the way you want to speak to me? Like, as your father? Like, is that the way you want people to speak to you? Is that you want me to speak to you that way? So I want you to express yourself, but we have to learn how to do it in a way where, you know, we're communicating effectively, and, you know, we're not hurting each other's feelings, and we're and just talking to my son a different way, and not to be like, yo, you being disrespectful.
Yep,
like,
off the rip.
You just off the rip.
I got cold chills listening to you say that, man, because, man, I remember being a kid and I heard things like, stay in the child's place. Don't speak unless you're spoken to. And like, you hear that and you feel like, yo, I'm unworthy of actually having my own opinion right now. You know what I mean? And like, you grow up thinking like, and then when you get to the age and somebody's like, what you think? And it's like, oh, somebody's actually asking me what I think. I'm allowed to say. And now you don't even have the confidence to speak, because for the longest time, you were told to not speak, or that's disrespectful, when really it was like, maybe my tone wasn't right. As you said, like, adjust. Let's talk about the tone here. But man, I'm applauding you and giving you your flowers for giving your son the ability to have an opinion. Because what that's doing to his confidence is like, oh man, my dad allowed me to have an opinion, even if it wasn't in alignment with his opinion. And so think about that, him as a young man, as a leader, like, hey, I have an opinion, I'm bold, and think about what he's going to be as a husband and as a father because of that, bro.
And it's like, man, I appreciate that. And it's the big thing. I was talking to a friend earlier. I had breakfast earlier with a friend, and we were talking about those things. And we were talking about it earlier about giving our kids things we didn't have, but really trying to change this perspective on that, and really looking at it from the lens of teaching my kids the things that I didn't learn. And like teaching my kids emotional intelligence, teaching my kids how to effectively communicate, like, which would have got me so, not necessarily giving them monetary things, you know, or, you know, obviously we want to give them experiences, take them on trips, do things like that, but just really teaching them lessons that I didn't learn that would have given me so much value in my life, you know, and just teaching them how to deal with those emotions, effectively communicate what he's saying, and
I mean, you
journey, man.
You hit me in my heart, because you're talking, like, I'm gonna say this. You mentioned like it's not just what I believe it was Bishop T.D. Jakes. He was like, oh, it's not what I leave for my kids, it's what I leave in my kids. Right? He said, because I could leave them a fortune, but if I don't leave the right things in them, the fortune will kill them. And I'm like, goodness. And like what you just said hit me, because you're talking about emotional intelligence. I promise. Not only was I not aware of emotional intelligence when I was younger, the people who raised me weren't aware of emotional intelligence.
Right.
And so it wasn't even something that was talked about. And so, I found myself repeating generational curses and cycles because those before me weren't aware of who they were emotionally or spiritually. So, brother, the game that you're kicking right now, man, like, it's powerful, man.
And a lot of men, I feel like they don't have someone to tell it to.
Yeah.
They don't feel like anybody's going to listen. Or also, I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this. Like, how are you? Because as I told you, I'm on these sites and these not these sites, but these groups on Facebook, and I'm hearing a lot of men talk, and people are giving advice. Right? People, they're posing questions to a group, and people are giving advice. And how do you know when you got the right person to tell it to? Right? Because you could have somebody, you could be venting to someone, and they're giving you all this feedback, but it could potentially be the wrong feedback. So how do you know when you got the right person to tell it to?
That's a fantastic question. Before I'll try to answer that. Before I do, I just want to let you know, I'd be glad to show you my tattoo, but it's on a less public place in my body, so I don't want to do that on camera.
All right, I appreciate that.
Michael was a Sally and couldn't get it in a place that was recognizable.
That's awesome.
If you need to edit that out, you can go ahead and do so.
Absolutely not.
He delights in saying that. He's very happy to say that. Anyway, now I forgot the question. No, how do you know when it's the right person? Oh wow,
such a good question.
That is a great question. The reason that going to try to answer this. The reason that we know when it's not the right person is because of the way it feels. Because if we feel that we've been vulnerable to someone, we've been very open with someone about how we feel or what we've done or what we've said, and they respond by saying, I can't believe you did that. How could you have said that? Why didn't you do this or that? You know what I mean? When someone responds in a way that makes you feel ashamed,
less than,
makes you feel less than, makes you feel as if you aren't measuring up, as if you don't know what you're doing, that's the person you learn not to be too vulnerable with.
Yeah.
So
sadly, and then that you have to learn the hard way.
Yeah. You never know. I mean, you really never know until you actually do it, until you open up to somebody, how they will respond and how it will make you feel.
Mm.
Maya Angelou, who we love and love to quote a lot, would say that you may forget what a person says. You may forget what they do. I'm paraphrasing this, but you will never forget how they make you feel.
That quote's on the wall in my kitchen.
Okay, I don't know. I hope that was fairly close. Just pulling it out of the air like that.
Yeah,
but it's about how they make you feel. And there are those who can make you feel, help you to feel safe and okay that you shared what you shared, and even okay that you did what you did, even if what you did was not always good. Yeah. But they don't make you feel ashamed. They make you feel loved and supported and encouraged and reassured no matter what. Now because somebody shames you or makes you feel bad, you're not going to open up again. That often slams the door shut. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't necessarily stop someone from doing something that may not be good. Yeah. It just kind of drives it underground. You just hide it, especially from that person. And so it's someone with whom you can just say whatever. We call it. We've written about this. There's a chapter in our second book that is entitled "Naked and Unashamed." Mm. It's being able to be emotionally, relationally naked with someone and not feel shamed or ashamed because of it. That they allow you to be seen very totally.
That's awesome. I loved your answer to that question, because it sounds like you're saying, like, the person that's going to judge you, if you're going to tell your story to someone, the person that's going to judge you for it and just try to feel like you're the problem and that they need to fix you and not be compassionate, that's the wrong person, right? Like I always feel when I'm talking to someone, if it's the right person, that they have a good balance of validating me and also challenging me, and giving me a say, and like you said, not making me feel ashamed of what I've done, but helping me through and walking me through evaluating it for myself, and challenging me in a healthy way.
Yeah, and liking it back to the Facebook group that you've mentioned, I think part of our issue with those types of platforms is that you can be very public, but you have no relationship with a lot of those people. Right. I mean, especially if it's a large group. And so how vulnerable do you want to be in a group like that? Because you'll see, just scroll the walls of social media and you'll see somebody puts something out really vulnerable and look at the responses that they get. It makes us oftentimes just sick to our stomach.
Yeah.
Because oftentimes it's very cliche, or it's not helpful, it's not supportive. And we always say it's not wrong to offer some wisdom and encouragement and maybe some direction at times, but do it within the context of a relationship. Mm-hmm. If you don't have a relationship with somebody, should we really be telling somebody else what to do? Mm-hmm. That's not fair. That's not appropriate. That just happens way too much in our society.
So my view on whooping is a lot of times that's about power and frustration and anger. I have never talked to I won't say never. I very seldomly talk to my children out of anger. Very seldomly. And I have very seldomly ever, I say never, got mad at them for something that they did that I know developmentally made sense. You don't know no better. It's my job to teach you. So if you don't know no better, how am I get mad at you, bro? How am I get mad at you? You supposed to know. How the heck I'm gonna tell you supposed to know when you 5 or 6? Or why I'm gonna tell a little boy to man up when he 4 because you ain't a man? That's about survival. And that's the parents' issue. I had to survive, so you're gonna survive. How many times I know somebody said, yo, I had to figure it out. My son gonna figure it out too. So what you're telling me is you're not willing to share with them the process? You're not willing to help them to be better than you? Because that's disrespecting you. When you say that to me, I think that's some big shit, bro. Because real dudes don't do that. A real man knows that I'm everything. And if I'm everything, then I can be humble. I can be vulnerable. I can be water. I can be solid. I can be gaseous. I can be the protector, the destroyer, the creator. I can be all these different things. And if I know that, then why wouldn't I want to share that knowledge in a way that my child can hear it? That's the dopest thing I can ever do. And if I do that, bro, I live forever in my child's mind. And if I live forever in his mind, then he gonna want to be better than me. He gonna want his child to be better than me, better than him. And our family will evolve.
Who?
That's the
I love that, man. That's the game, man. Who's watered you the most as a father?
Honestly, man, I surrounded myself with mentors. I remember, this is gonna sound the weirdest thing, bro. Don't judge me on this. Weird. When I was little, I was like 12 or 11. My dad got me this book called The Transparent Self. He got it from a garage sale. He had no idea it was psychotherapy, and it was talking about reincarnation and all this other stuff. He just liked the drawings, and he thought I was gonna like the drawings because I was an art kid. And I was like, oh, I like it, but he didn't know I was reading it. And I remember one year at Christmas, I looked at him and I said, yo, man, I'm so happy I chose you. He was like, what? I said, nah, I chose you. He was like, how'd you choose me? I said, I chose you because I knew you were going to teach me something. And because of that, I'm going to teach somebody else something. So my philosophy has always been a little different. But I will tell you that because of that, I've always been able to absorb some things from the men in my community and the women in my community. My mother was dope and strong, is dope and strong. My cousins, Michelle was the first woman that ever hit me in the chest and caved my chest in because I said something disrespectful. And I was like, oh my God. And I was big. She caught me. Mr. Thomas next door to me, who was a professor at Ohio State on African psychology. The German dude that lived next door to me taught me about, German and sausages and all this other stuff. Mr. Harper, who did the Major Taylors, which was a bike club in Columbus, the first black bike club, riding their bikes. So I've always been able to absorb this information from all these men because I was willing. And, and then the other part to it is for real, my dudes who didn't choose what I chose. Yeah. My dudes were so dope. They kept it 100 with me. Like, bro, this ain't your route. This ain't what's up. You see how stressed out I am. I'm like, yeah, but you getting it. They like, bruh, it's a long game. It ain't the short game. Even though my father, I remember walking in the house one time, I had to walk like, yeah, what's up? And he was like, well, what's up with that? I was like, oh, I'm just cool. He said, so you pretending to be cool because you don't walk that way. I was like, that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy that you talk about that because I think that's if you're not from that community and that life and you ain't spent time around like dope dealers and like cats in the street, things like that, you have this perception of who these people are, right? And like I don't think people understand that. Like you said, I had the same experience. Like I grew up around street cats. And they don't want, if they see, in most cases, man, if they see that you trying to do good in school, man, you playing sports, they like, yo, man, this, you don't want this. They not trying to like necessarily recruit and mold all these young kids into dope dealers. Like they feel like that's their only option. And like they want you to be better. They want you to get out of that lifestyle. Like they not bad people. So when it comes to being transparent, how transparent are you, with your kids about just like how you feeling and your thoughts, your emotions and things like that? And do you feel like you use that to connect with them as well? Just transparency in your own life?
Yep. Yeah. And that was part of the growth process because, I've historically been a closed off individual when it comes to emotions. You know what I'm saying? I just keep it on side and just deal with it, move on. But what I found was sharing that with them deepens that bond so much more because I can't expect them to be open, honest, and vulnerable if I'm not modeling it for them. You know what I'm saying? Like the other day, I was sitting there, me and my son, we was on the game, we was just chilling and we talking and playing. And I just paused it and I looked at him, I said, dude, you realize that these are like literally the happiest moments of my life. Just spending time with you and your sister and just being in, and I teared up and what I'm saying? And then he came, gave me a hug. It was like, man, that means a lot, to hear that. And you know what I'm saying? I could count on, like, I ain't even got to use one hand. I can use a finger for how many times I see my dad drop a tear, you know what I mean? And to be able to show him that side of, hey, it's okay to share how you're feeling, to express that to the people that you love. I think that that's going to set them up for much, much greater success than I've ever had. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's real, man. Cause like, I come from the same type of background where I didn't see emotion, on my parents, unless it was like they was going through something serious and it was like a breakdown, it wasn't it wasn't where they was like being intentional about being vulnerable, it wasn't the same thing. And, I remember going to, I had a situation, a few weeks ago with my son. And, my son, sometimes he can be a little mischievous, man. Like he'll sometimes he'll stretch the truth,
Okay.
Sometimes he'll flat out lie, you know what I mean? Like he'll just, but he a kid, like, and I found out about him when I'm learning about him is that he gets embarrassed when he get caught up in something, and he don't want you to look at him. He don't want you to look at him in a certain light. So he'll rather just not, lie about it. And so you don't look at him a certain way. And it was something about his spelling words, man. He said his teacher didn't bring him home. Right? and he said, well, I never got him from the teacher, never gave him to me. So, his mom, I hit his mom up and she's been communicating with the teacher. So I let her communicate. I said, ask the teacher about the spelling words, man.
Okay.
She's like, oh, she said she gave him 2 copies. Right. And I'm like, I ain't call him out. I ain't flat out call him a liar. I was like, well, teacher said you got 2 copies. What's going on? He's like, well, sometimes she forget. He's gonna ride this lie out. Right? He's like, she forgets. So she that's why I don't like her as a teacher. He was going in on her. That's why I don't like her as a teacher because she do things, she say stuff and she forget. I'm like, all right, okay, man. If you say she forget, we'll go talk to your teacher tomorrow. I'll go talk to her and we'll see.
Yeah.
And I can see him like he over there thinking hard now. So
back against the wall, which way I'm gonna play it?
Back against the wall. And it was like me and him ended up going to the park that same night. We went on a bike ride. Okay. And we went to the park and I used that as an opportunity to talk to him because I wanted to talk to him about some leadership stuff with football too. My son, he balls out. He's a ball player. So he plays running back for his team. And he's a leader on the team. And I was talking to him about leadership where I thought he could do better with his leadership.
Gotcha.
He's a great player, but some of his leadership qualities was like, okay, needed some tuning up.
Okay.
And I was like, yo, I need you to do your best, man. I need you to be honest with me.
Yeah.
And he was like, he took a deep breath and he's like, you don't got to go to school tomorrow. He's like, I lied about those fellow words. And, you know, I just went and I gave him a hug and he started crying.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I just told him, you know, I thanked him for telling me the truth. And, you know, I got emotional and I was like, yo, man, like, look, man. Right. And I told him, I was like, yo, man, you the best thing that ever happened to me, bro. Like, and I got emotional and he just like, when I told him he was the best thing that ever happened to me, he just laid his head in my midsection and just started bawling, crying. Like, it's almost like he thought I might've been ashamed of him or something before, or like something because he lied to me or something.
Right.
And, you know, it's like, nah, man.
Right,
like,
right.
I'm here to guide you and teach you. Like, I ain't mad at you.
Yeah.
I just want you to be the best little human being you can be.
Exactly. And it's hard for children to conceptualize that, you know what I'm saying? Because they continually striving to make us proud and make us happy. So any little perceived setback on their end is like, oh man, that's, you know what I'm saying? That's going to be a knock on my belt, you know? So I think the way that you handled that is phenomenal because one, it shows him that he can come and talk to you without getting the reaction or reception that he would anticipate. And that's going to be phenomenal as he grows and starts to face harder and more difficult trials and tribulations, that he'll have you in his corner and feel comfortable to open up and get that advice from dad. And instead of running to the friends on the street that don't know no better anyway. Yeah. And they all trying to figure it out, telling each other what they done learned from big brothers who don't know nothing. So, you know, I think that's golden, man.
From your perspective, if you could leave anything, if you tell fathers anything, this is one nugget I want to leave with you. One or two nuggets. What would they be?
Let me think about that. I'm looking at, I got these Post-it notes in my desk here. And one of them is like, yeah, that might resonate. It's a couple of things here that could relate to fatherhood. And so there's one about staying patient, knowing that this is a journey. Like, God willing, if it's God's will, our children are going to outlive us. Mm-hmm. And hopefully, God willing, we live a long life physically. And so knowing that we got a long time horizon. There's another book, Infinite Games. I'm going to check that out. Talk about the infinite game and the infinite player and the finite player. Mm-hmm. You know, I think of, you know, fatherhood as an infinite game where there's no winners and losers. Just we all trying to stay in the game. And the rules may change as they get older, but we're trying to perpetuate the game. And I don't mean game in a lighthearted sense. I mean game in the fact that it's an activity that happens over and over and over and over again. And again, there's no winners and losers. You know, so that whole respect and disrespect and all these things, not about who wins now, who wins later. We continue to keep that relationship going. And so we want to always be checking in on making sure that our decisions now have lasting impacts into the future, and that the future father, the future you, will say thank you for the things that you've done at this moment in this stage of your fatherhood. So I would say it's a process. I would say enjoy the process. It's a journey, and remember that it is not about us as a father. It's definitely about making sure that the kids have the best experience on this earth as possible, that we can help mold them and create them or help them become good humans. Yeah. They don't need to be us. They need to be good humans. Right. How we define humans. And so stay patient. It's a journey. You know, be an infinite player. Own your energy.
I love that, man. I love it's two things, especially that you said towards the end, is enjoy the journey like, and, enjoy the process. Right. And they don't got to be us. They don't have to be, they're their own. They don't even belong to us. Like, they
real talk. They don't.
They don't even belong to us. And like, we like to think like, yeah, they are kids, but they don't belong. They their own people. We just here to guide them and make sure they survive. And like, and yeah, enjoy the process. Don't be sitting here. Hey, if you got going through some struggles right now, don't change your perspective on like, why is this happening to me? And like, just like, look, use it as an opportunity for growth and opportunity to like, I heard somewhere saying like, if you pray for patience, God don't give you patience. He gives you things that's going to test your patience. He gives you opportunities to be patient.
Oh,
he puts a wild 9-year-old in your life to give you plenty of opportunities to be patient. You don't just insert patience into your body, into your spirit. He gives you opportunity to practice it and master it.
You got to go through it. You got to go through it. Yeah,
got to go through it.
That's it. I was scared because I had my plan was to give these kids something different, right? And now here I am, finding myself in the same position probably my mom was in when when my sister and me were young. I have a spouse and a co-parent, who's having a substance abuse problem.
And when you now you're a dad, right? And you're going through all of this. And how did your vision of who you were as a father, how did that affect that?
I think what I tried my best to portray the image that I wanted to portray to my children and to people on the outside, and that the image that I the father that I wanted to be, I tried to portray that image on the outside, and on the inside, I'm feeling I'm scared and I'm feeling guilt, and I'm I'm starting to doubt starting to creep in. Am I capable, right, of being a good father? And in my mind, I'm failing at this thing, right? That I had set out to do to break the family cycle.
Man, I think there's so many fathers who they don't have to have like any substance abuse issues or any type of like what you would consider maybe a major issue or anything like that have those same type of feelings, the same type of feelings of doubt and like, am I doing this thing right? And like of guilt of like that. I'm like, man, whatever my past experiences are, whatever my unresolved trauma is like, and I'm like fucking my kids up, like, like because of my own bullshit. I can't, like, can I, and, like, so like, what would you say to those fathers that are experiencing like that guilt? And like, how do you kind of, even from your perspective or things that you've done, or from a mental health professional standpoint, how do you climb up out of that hole of doubt and guilt of like, damn, am I really doing this shit the right way?
I would say that it took me a long time to not just know in my head, but to internalize that shit ain't doing me no good.
Yeah.
That guilt that I'm feeling is not helpful. And that I can't change the past. And I know that those are sort of cliche things, but really, I just got to try to be the best father I can be on a daily basis, right? And I think that it's kind of a fine line you walk from being like from holding yourself accountable, and realizing that your fingerprints are on your kids for the rest of like the things you do are going to affect them, and
you can't always control the outcome of things, right? And I've learned that the kids are more resilient than possibly that you think they are.
When you're coaching youth sports and you're coaching your kids, like, what are some of the most important lessons you feel like you got to give them on the court? Just in general for you.
Well, like, okay, let's say the first practice that we have every year, I always, there's 4 or 5 different points that I try and make before we start practicing. And, a couple of those are, I don't really care what's going on, outside of this team. Like, if there's 2 kids who don't like each other at school, when you guys step in here, it's a team. For us to be successful, you guys have to work together. And, there's a chance with you guys actually working together and trying to accomplish something that you might find out that you actually like each other, and it's not whatever the beef was before, whether it was some girl, because now it's like middle school and high school, whether it was some girl or y'all had the same sneakers or something like that. Once you guys start, working together, you might like each other. But coming in here, you guys are a team. That's what that's one of the things I always say the first practice. I always say, 2, I don't care about you guys missing shots, but I want you to try hard all the time. And one thing I don't want to see is your head down, after you miss a shot. I'll tell them, clap your hands and say, all right, let's go. I'll get the next one.
Yeah.
I hate seeing that when the kid and their head is down. And a lot of times, if they have an overbearing parent with it, or a parent who does get mad with them, they'll look up first and then they'll put their head down at them. And I'm telling them that too in front of their parents. Hey, don't look in the stands. All right. Clap your hands and say, I'll get that next one.
Yeah. Yeah. What about your sons? Like, have you ever had a moment, talk about a moment with, your sons where they had a hard time, just with either leadership or responding to a loss or something like that, and you were able to teach them a lesson through it. Can you think of a time like that?
Yeah, I think this has been a couple times.
Yeah.
My older son and this is in life too. It's like, if he didn't get something right away, he got really frustrated. He was reading at 3. So it was like, he processed things real quick, but if he couldn't process it right away, or if it didn't happen right away, if his shot wasn't going in right away, he'd get frustrated and kind of like go inward. So I was, I'd have a hard time bringing him out. I have to talk about all the good things that he was doing, and something he had said later on really hit me, because so at one point I got them working with a trainer, this basketball trainer. It was actually a guy that I had played with in junior college. And I saw him one day and I was like, man, he looks familiar. And I saw the things that he was doing with this other kid. And I looked up, went up to him, I was like, oh, what's up? And so I started, and this is after they were really showing me that they wanted to play and they wanted to get better. So I worked with him, the trainer. And so my older son, one day we were riding home and he was like, man, coach, he was telling me a lot of things that you would say. A lot of things that you would say to do, it sounded just like you. And he said, I wish I would have listened to you before. Maybe I'd be better now if I would have listened to you before. And, that hit me, because I could tell he was, a little hurt about it. And, a small part of you wants to say, yeah, I told you so. but the other part, the 75% was like, you can't go back now. You can't go back. You're doing great. Just keep going forward. Don't worry about it. And he was happy about that.
what's been like are some of the biggest hurdles, like just to get shared parenting, get some equal rights for the fathers? What's been some of the biggest hurdles for you?
So I guess it kind of depends on what route we want to go with it.
Okay.
I can say, over the last few years, there have been several bills that have presented to the West Virginia legislature that advocate for shared parenting. Last year was really, really good, and it got shot down in Judiciary Committee. It's funny. My fiance and I actually drove down the night before, sat in committee all day long on the last day of session, and finally at like 11 p.m. we were there until 2 a.m. testifying to the committee members, before they could go home for the end of the session. Session like 60 days in West Virginia. But everything came back to, from what we could gather, the judges and their desire to have, this unending discretion and ability to decide for themselves without anything concrete in place.
Yeah.
They were some of the biggest opponents to this bill, and there was actually a judge there who was advocating against the bill, which is completely outside of her purview as a judicial officer of the court. They're intended to interpret the laws that are made, not to sway what laws are made.
Right.
So it's a whole can of worms, man. But some of the biggest hurdles are people, unless they've been through it, unless they've seen family court, whether it be themselves or a loved one or someone they know, they don't know what's involved. And everyone's opinion is, because it just makes sense, right? I thought 50-50 was the standard. Where, there's literally nothing in West Virginia statute that says anything currently about even the desire to make 50-50 the starting point. It's all, like you said, based on the quoted terms, the best interest of the child and a substantial change in circumstance, as far as parenting plans and modifications thereof.
Yeah.
So the biggest hurdles that we have when we lobby with legislators is showing them, like, here's what the law says, and here are the statistics that show that like 90+% of cases that go to court end up with the children with the mother primarily. And it just doesn't make sense as far as all the social scientific studies that prove that children are better off when they have two fit parents who love them and want to contribute to their lives.
And do you think that's just because of where we started, like socially, like as a society, like men were the breadwinners and the women stayed at home with the kids, and so just society told us that the kids are better off with their mother, and we're fighting against societal norms? Is that one of the things that you would say is a big issue?
It is a big issue, and that's kind of how West Virginia law is currently established. We were briefly talking before this. What they kind of based it on was the idea that kids can only form one strong bond with a parent. So they're already at a disadvantage because, whether mom or dad's there, they have to choose one that they're more connected to. But especially as job duties and responsibilities and education is changing, like there are more women achieving higher level degrees now than there are men, and women are entering the workforce at a higher rate and are more driven to succeed. It's a lot different than in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, where men were the primary breadwinners. Whether it's the active advancement of women in the workforce, or it's just the natural progression of movement. It's things are shifting, things are evolving, and our laws need to do that as well.
Well, a lot of times I talk about co-parenting as well. Do you know what co-parenting is?
No.
Co-parenting is when it's what me and mommy are doing. Like we don't live in the same house, but we're both your parents. Right? So we're both doing it together, but in different houses.
Yeah, we switch and then switch and then switch.
How do you think we're doing?
Good.
I think you're doing good
because like our school, I feel like you two agreed and didn't have to go to court. I think when we stay for the week at our mom's house because our school bus gets we get picked up there and we go with Daddy on the weekends, and yeah, I feel like they're doing good about that.
So you mentioned court. Do you did you have something to add to that, Ava?
About what?
How me and Mommy are doing, working together.
Well, I think it's doing pretty good because I get to see both of you on almost equal days because I see you for 3 and Mommy for 4. But sometimes I see you like half the days that in Mommy's 4 days, and sometimes I see Mommy in your 3 days. So
okay. Yeah.
But I see you more in Mommy's 4 days, so it's kind of equal.
You mentioned court. Like, what do you know about parents going to court? Would you hear about that?
Like, there's this movie I watched that's called Miss Doubtfire, and their parents didn't get along, so the mom wanted a divorce, and they went to court to figure out how they're gonna work things out.
Yeah. That can be tough on parents and the kids.
Yeah.
That's it. It's officially the ending of season 1 of the Molds That Make Fatherhood. Thank you again so much for listening. And if you know anybody that you think can benefit from this podcast, please share it with them. Subscribe to the YouTube channel and just get ready for season 2. We're going to come back even bigger, even better, add even more value. And thanks again for your support. I hope you all have an amazing day, and I'll see you in season 2.